my drugs. I don't need love, just get my cup, double it up. I'm on my own, depressing buzz. I'm out of luck, so run it up.
I need your love, love, love. I feel your love, love, love. I need your love, love, love. I feel your love, love, love. I stay still and paint a parallel universe and look at you every day and kiss your lips, play with your fine hair. Like in the old songs, nothing's right or wrong. We invented a world of sounds and sadness, and every day is like 100 years of solitude that knows some madness. Love, love, I feel your love, love, love. Honey, your love, love, love.
Fresh and the donuts were good. I'm very pleased to introduce as our next speaker, Alice Heggie. Alice is a PhD candidate at the University of Dundee, and she's going to be presenting on building cultural capital from childhood to fix the talent pipeline. So please put your hands together for Alice Heggie.
Hello. I haven't come from Dundee, by the way. I come from Ashford. I'm just studying with Dundee, distance learning. I thought it was pertinent, given that I'm here, to display my musical credentials. So I was a singer-songwriter for many years, but I'm not a teacher, I'm not a lecturer, but I have worked in higher education for a really long time. Most recently as the head of higher education at a college group. So I've worked in college-based HE. I've also worked in outreach in the music department with Rich, and this is how I'm here. I've done lots of arts project management, kind of skills development stuff for young people. And one of my first jobs in higher education was organising the graduation ceremonies. And that's kind of my origin story for how I've ended up doing this particular PhD that I'll talk a little bit about in a second. But when I was organising the graduation, it's like thousands and thousands of students coming through every year. I think I must have been to about 100 graduations. I love every one of them, cry every time. And they're such a magical event. They're exactly why we're all here and doing these jobs. But every ceremony, every cycle, I saw a handful of students who were unhappy with the outcome of their degree, or the degree that they did. Either they had failed, or they never wanted to sign up for that degree in the first place. And that travelled with me through into music, working in outreach in the music department, whereas we get a lot of students, usually from a science subject, transferring to us in the second year and having to start all over again. And I thought, this can't be. We cannot have these young people making these decisions and not feeling like they can advocate for themselves to do the subject that they want to do. And working in outreach for so long, I was like, why are we focusing on 14 plus, 16 plus? Like, they've made so many decisions already that there's very little influence that we can have as a university or a higher education provider. We need to start this work much, much earlier. And that is my solution, personally, for the talent pipeline issues that we are facing in the creative sector in general, and for the worrying decline in the number of students and young people who are taking creative subjects at GCSE, at A-level, at level 3, at level 4, 5. is to start those conversations and to start building that experience of the creative industries from primary or pre-primary. So creating futures, that's my PhD. I'm technically in my first year, although I'm in my second year, so I'm doing it part-time and trying to work and do all the other things, life things that is happening alongside it. So the main question that I'm trying to answer is, what is primary-aged children, so sort of 5 to 11, what is their perception of the creative industries at large as a career choice specifically? And what I found is there's, again, quite a lot of focus on teenagers. But the theoretical frameworks that I'm using are capital theory and career construction theory. I'm hoping that most people in this room are kind of familiar with capital theory, but you might not be as familiar with career construction theory. And the idea is that career decision-making isn't done independently of the self, and that, in particular, those early, very early experiences, those role models, those things that you enjoy participating in when you're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, do influence the decision-making that takes place later on in life. In particular, role models is an important one. So role models outside of the family. My role model, when I did this, there's a whole coaching exercise that you can do. When I did this with some people when I was doing a careers development diploma, we settled on Mary Poppins as my early role model. It's not my favourite character, it wasn't my favourite film or my favourite book, but I used to dress up as her a lot. And all I needed was a pair of those plastic play shoes and an umbrella, and I was Mary Poppins. And initially, I was like, I'm not really sure about that, but when you think about it, when I thought about it anyway, was she's very matter of fact. She likes to swoop in, fix things, and leave again. That's why I love a fixed-term project. She likes children, but has none of her own. And so can help many more. So when I started looking at literature on children's perceptions, particularly of the creative industries as a career choice, I found nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I did that question myself to start with. I was like, is it me? Am I searching wrong? Am I doing this? I'm already failing at this PhD. But there really is so little research into young children's perceptions of anything in general, but particularly of the creative industries. There's there's a lot of, what is an artist? Can you draw an artist? In the same way as what is a scientist? Can you draw a scientist? It's very divorced from the self. That kind of implies that these young children aren't artists in and of themselves, that it's something other than them. So what I had to do was forced to expand my searches into STEM, and I want to share three kind of interesting, I think, projects that looked into the perceptions of sort of primary-age children in STEM. The first one was an engineering after-school club in the US, so it's middle school, so it's a little bit older, but it's kind of bridges the primary school bracket for us. And they put on this after-school club for a select amount of children. And as you'd expect, these children did aspire to become engineers. But the interesting thing that happened was that when they were using the students who weren't participating as a kind of control group, but actually they found that aspirations increased across the whole school just by having this after-school club in. So there was a kind of whole school culture shift just by signposting, having it really visible. Perhaps the way teachers were teaching had shifted. but it didn't have just a positive impact on just those taking part. It was on all of the learners because they could see that this was a valued career path. The second one was interesting in kind of the identity of themselves as a scientist. And the one thing that came out of this particular study that wasn't really delved into hugely by them, but really rang some bells with me with creative industries was a lot of the children they spoke to couldn't associate themselves as scientists themselves when they were doing practical scientific experiments, was because of the kind of pervasive idea of brilliance or genius, that you can't be a scientist unless you're brilliant, unless you're doing all this amazing stuff. You're not a scientist if you're just replicating something in your classroom. And that I definitely think is true in the creative industries, this idea of the genius, of the innate artist who's had no lessons and hasn't practiced at all and can just, play things from hearing it once, those kinds of things that dissuade people from even trying because they don't feel like they have a natural ability for it. And the third one was from agriculture. They took a group of, I think they were 8-year-olds, out to a farm, working farm. And before the visit, they got them to draw what they thought a farm looked like. And then after the visit, they got them to draw what a farm looked like. And the visit, which was very hands-on, meant that their conception of kind of a farm or agriculture was more realistic. Prior to the visit, they were drawing quite a lot of fantastical animals or stereotypical images that they'd seen from the media or cartoons that they liked watching, whereas afterwards it was much more realistic and of things that they'd actually seen on the farm. But again, there was another thing that the research didn't really dig into, that the students who visited the farm were much more likely to draw themselves as farmers afterwards. So just having that one experience where they're taking part and getting hands-on with the machinery and hearing from the farmer, they could see that as a possible self and were drawing themselves like that. But why is it important? That's a lot of questions that I used to get when I was running projects, usually from local authorities. Why is it important? Why does it matter? Why do we need to spend all this money in kind of generating arts and culture for young people and children? And I strongly believe, and I am sure everyone in this room believes this, that everybody has the right to explore the careers that they want to have. And not have those opportunities limited by what the curriculum says they need to learn, or what is of value, or what is important. If we limit those, then we're propping up the problem that we have in the creative industries of it being disproportionately upper and middle class, because those are the ones that have the financial capital and the social capital to access arts and culture outside of the classroom. One of my favourite facts, I think, is from the Sutton Trust. If anyone knows this fact as well, please correct me if it's not from them, but there are more theatres in private schools in London than in the entire West End. So the private schools value this. That's where they're putting their money towards, because they know the impact of having that rich cultural experience has for their kids. Now, a state school somewhere else is not going to have that opportunity to do that. So if we allow this inequity to continue, our industry will just remain homogenous and extremely dull. But aside from the talent pipeline issues, if you believe in the concept of capital, which I do, And if you accept that inequitable access to arts and culture plays out as inequitable access to high value and well-paid professional work. We are literally gatekeeping these professional jobs. And without a creative education, children just aren't developing vital physical and emotional skills like motor skills, fine motor skills, or resilience, perseverance, all of those things that, creative thinking, all of those things that employers every year, when they get surveyed in the employer survey, what skills do you need from your workforce? Creativity. Well, what? how are we going to instill that in our children? There was a great article from years ago, I think it was on the BBC, from a surgeon called Dr. Kneebone, which is like the best name for a surgeon ever. I thought it was like a comedy article to start with, but he's a real surgeon, and he does a lot of campaigning work for arts in schools because he sees the surgeons that are coming through do not have the fine motor skills to sew someone up again. They're not drawing, they're not playing a musical instrument, they're not handwriting. So all of these skills that we teach, if we're not teaching them at a much earlier age, we're failing our children on basic skills and in many other industries. But all is not lost. I think there are some things that we can do as an industry and as a higher education providers. Now, this comes from my own observations. It's not backed up by my research, it's backed up by other people's research. Because as I said, I'm in kind of the early stages of my PhD, and hopefully in a couple of years' time, once I've actually managed to do a bit of research, maybe Rich will have me back and I can update you all. But these are the things that I've observed, and they do require some kind of investment, either economic or social investment. We need to ensure that all children have equitable access to the culture of their society. Now, that could be through free subsidised tickets, expand that. A lot of theatres already do it, a lot of venues already do it, but I think that needs to become more of the standard. Industry putting their hands in their pockets. Like, we, as a collective industry, contribute like £130 billion to the UK economy every year. There has got to be some pennies down the back of the sofa for schools. I've put a little example there of Burberry Inspire. They did a really nice project in Yorkshire. So Burberry Inspire are Burberry, the Burberry, but they have a foundation where they do a lot of charitable work. And they did a long-term, like 3 or 4 year project in a secondary school, a few secondary schools in Yorkshire. And it wasn't just about fashion, it was about embedding creatives, true creative practitioners, musicians, actors, writers, embedding them in the classroom for long periods of time and working with these young people to, raise aspirations and just raise awareness that that is an option for them. So more projects like that, please, from the big boys. But from our perspective as universities, I beg them to expand their outreach earlier than 16 plus. Outreach needs to be separated from recruitment. It needs to be truly what it's for. Start working with your local primary schools. It's really fulfilling. It's not that different to working with your 21-year-olds, I promise. Generate some CPD for your primary school teachers. They're time poor, we're time poor, the industry's time poor. But we could definitely share some best practice with them, and they can share their knowledge with us. And more research on young children's perceptions of our industry is really important, I've discovered. Then there's the social investment, and this is a little bit more radical and it would take a little bit longer, but when Bourdieu was generating his idea of capital theory in the 70s, there was huge cultural shift at that time. And we can do that. We can change what is the legitimised culture of our society. We get to choose what is valued in arts and culture, not Arts Council, although it does get perpetuated like that because of the way that we're funded. I think there's a problem of just exposing young children to arts and culture, because who gets to decide what that is? Who gets to decide what's of value? Who gets to decide what's important to them? And it's not about money, because a lot of sectors generate huge sums of money, but aren't valued in the same way as other sectors. I'm thinking gaming is one that generates huge sums of money, but isn't valued in the same way as other things. If you think to film, if it's art house or it's Oscar nominated or it's anything by Luc Besson, then that's high value film. But you start talking about horror or rom-coms and people start turning their noses up at it. Publishing, Booker Prize winners, Jane Austen, but comics, it's not as valued, and yet comics is a huge gateway tool for young people to access literature. So who gets to decide what art and culture is of value? We do, and the next generation should know that they do. And if we can change what is valued, we can change who holds the capital. And that's it, really. So the discussion I'd like to kind of throw out to you is, I've shared my role model, but would anyone like to share who they think, when you're 4, 5, 6 years old, who can you think of that you really resonated with, that you wanted to be? Or any questions for me, but nothing too hard, please.
Thank you very much, Alice. That was great. Thank you. So yes, we just open it out to the floor. We've got the 2 microphones down the side, so if you could just wave your hands. Oh, we've got a Tom in the front row here, and Tom in the front row here, oddly.
Thanks, Alice. That was a fantastic presentation. I really enjoyed that. While you were talking, I was thinking about the space that we're in today, and Matt, who's at the back doing sound and AV for us today, we've got a live production programme here at ACM. You would think that it would be the easiest programme to recruit for, because there's so many routes into industry. It's, you know, a really good area for graduate outcomes, etc. But we can't. It's something that we've got to work really hard on, and that's because, particularly in addition to everything that you've spoken about there, you've also got this problem of formative curricula, which just does not cover what the creative arts are properly. It's so outdated. Do you have any thoughts on that in terms of what we should be doing for schools? I know you mentioned CPD for staff, but in terms of curricula, and how do we inform young people about what the options actually are?
Invite them here.
Good idea.
Invite your primary school. They would love to come on a trip. Invite them here. Show them secondary schools as well. Don't discount secondary schools. That is also really important. But I'm talking about primary schools. Show them what these jobs are. They're invisible, but they're so important. Let them play with the lights and have a go, and just show them what it. One of my thinkings around how I'm going to approach my research for this is I've got a lot of connections. And I'd like to work with some venues who already work with primary schools to try and kind of do some benchmarking around how they feel before their trip to this venue and how they feel afterwards. So just invite them. Invite them here. Go to them. But tech is one of the hardest ones. Like in all industries, theatre's having a really hard time recruiting to that industry because it's really invisible. And I think, particularly in primary schools and to a degree in secondary schools, the arts is kind of presented as a fun thing to do or something that you produce, not something that you can participate in as a collective whole.
That's it.
So yeah, that's my advice.
Thank you.
Tom too?
Thanks, Alice. That was really, really interesting. I completely agree with this get them early thing. And I was... it made me remember that in 2014, when Nicky Morgan was the Secretary of State for Education, she gave this speech basically saying that all children should choose STEM subjects because they're the high-earning subjects There's no career path in. I don't think she implied. It was the implication was, if you choose, you're an idiot if you choose creative subjects, because you won't have a career to look at. And that's like 10 years ago. So that's literally this year's intake, or these couple of years' intakes, would have been influenced by that decision in choosing what subjects to do at school and so on. And so, yeah, I think getting them early is really important. But there is this, you're really up against it when the official discourse from the state is basically there's no money, there is no such thing as the creative industries, really, there's no money in it. And how do you, the sheer weight of that, it's a huge task, isn't it? And going back to your role models, Tony Blair was not my role model at all. But I grew up, I did my GCSEs when the New Labour came in, and their whole agenda was about Creative Britain. So I was kind of, marinated in this completely different language of what subjects to choose and so on. Everybody wanted to do creative industries at the time, and then it completely turned on its face. So how do we push as universities, which are state institutions often? I mean, not this one, but how do you push back against such a, Philistine official discourse?
I don't think I have the answer to that very massive question, but I 100% agree with you. There's a really weird cognitive dissonance in our government, and has been for the last 25 years. And even though, yes, Tony Blair's New Labour was very, culture and creativity driven, actually they still, I tracked this through actually from 1988, which is when I went to secondary school. They did outwardly say they're celebrating creative industries, but still funded science more. And we have just had the budget this week where I think it was 86 billion went to science and technology and 8 billion went to the arts. I think even just that 6 billion at the end, if you'd given that to us, it would have nearly doubled our budget. But what can we do? I don't really know. I think be really more loud about the value. It's that question of why does it matter? Because it matters, because we can't recruit technicians, because there's a huge industry there. It contributes £130 billion. That's more than life sciences and aerospace and automotive put together. So why are life sciences being prioritised when there's so much more career happening in the creative industry? So I think it's, there's a room for universities to really start actively lobbying and showing your research what you're doing and what's like on the ground with your students.
Could we get a microphone to Angela here, please? And then Shane, did you have a question too?
Thanks. So when I was really small, I don't think I had a role model, but I remember my first role model was Phoebe from Friends. And if anyone wants my rendition of a smelly cat, we can do that later.
We'll dig into that later.
Yeah. I just wanted to highlight that the industrial strategy, which was due out on Wednesday and is just still tumbleweeding, has identified the creative industries as one of the key 8 areas. What that will translate into, we don't yet know, but it is like a positive good news story. And because I'm Phoebe from Friends, I like to bring positive good news stories. So hopefully within the next few weeks, we will see some good things from the government supporting creative industries.
Yeah, I'm also trying to hang on to a bit of optimism. The new National Centre for Creative Education, I think, is Creative Music Education or something, some acronym that they like, that's opening next year. So they obviously see the value of it, but I'm not sure any of them really know what that means in practice. So maybe it's our job to tell them, I don't know.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Shane, next, please.
Yeah, very best of luck with your PhD.
Thank you. I'm still in the Rosie. I'm really enjoying just exploring the research. So I'll be a completely different hollow shell of a woman when I come next time.
Yeah, because that's part of the course. I'm a big Bourdieu fan too. One of the challenges with Bourdieu is it's fixed, and it's very difficult to understand and think about change through Bourdieu. So it's great that you're looking at social action, essentially, through some of those analytical lenses. I just wanted to bring to your conversation AI, and I think there's a seismic shift happening at the moment, and it will be very interesting to see where cultural expression is, the value of cultural expression a little bit further down the track once the ramifications of AI really work through education. It's such a disruptor. And just to bring into that as well, this key question of who are the role models, and of course it does matter, as you said, who is making a judgment of what is valued. And I just wanted to, I guess, invite any reflections that you've maybe already started to have about where you see some of that optimism, some of that hope coming in where we're at right now and where it's going.
I think it can feel really difficult to have optimism and hope in the current world that we are living in, with everything that's going on outside of the sector, within the sector. But there are little pockets of it, and that comes through art and culture and how we express ourselves. And I think, the next generation are adopting tools that we never had when we were growing up. Everything's much more accessible. They've got social media and absolutely nailed down. There are a lot of negatives to that platform, but a lot of positives in terms of shifting the narrative on what is valued. And as those really young people who have grown up as digital natives, properly start to embed themselves within the workforce, not just in the creative industries, but in the workforce at large, I think you're right. We are on the cusp of a massive seismic change of, what is high art? Is it just opera? Is it just fine art? No, they have their place, absolutely, high value. But that doesn't mean that other things are not also. So it's an exciting time.
Okay, thank you very much, Alice. That was a wonderful presentation. I'm trying to think who my role model was at 6. It was probably He-Man.
I can see
someone
it.
I still aspire to be like on a daily basis.
I'm just going to give you one anecdote. When I did this with one of my friend's partners, he said Thomas the Tank Engine, and he was like, he has had no influence on what I do as a career now or any of my adult life. And I was like, darling, you are literally training to be a train driver right now.
Thanks, Alice. Okay, we'll just set up for the next presentation.
Try to forget you, but you repeating all my dreams. 'Cause these winter eves are coldest that I've ever seen. Like Indian songs, it's right or wrong. We invented a world of songs and sadness, and every
And Dr. Madeline Castri, you're going to be talking about, I believe, reframing postgraduate creative curriculums.
That's the one.
See you soon.
Thank you, Rich. Hello, everyone. My name is Katia Carvalho, and alongside Dr. Madeline Castro here, we lead the Masters of Arts and Science in the Creative Industries Futures here at ACM, which you've been invited to share a little bit about our program here, which was born from a fundamental recognition that traditional educational paradigms are insufficient or inadequate for the contemporary creative ecosystem we have today. So if we're talking about creative industries futures, and we have to refer to what futurist professionals call a BANI or VUCA world, our students have heard this term quite a lot throughout the terms, one where we as creative professionals must not merely survive volatility and uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity, but thrive within it, a world of flux, of change. And as one of the most prominent scholars in futures thinking, April Reen states, the workplace is in flux, climate is in flux, organizations, careers, education, learning, schools are in flux, social cohesion, public health, planetary health are in flux. Weather patterns, family life, democracy, dreams, expectations, and even our fundamental understanding of what career success and longevity looks like and feels like is in flux. So this presents both challenges and opportunities. So how do we effectively empower our students to navigate this ever-changing landscape? How do we help them manage their practice and their careers with agility and resilience, with an outlook for longevity and sustainability, while promoting their personal well-being, professional growth, and societal contribution? How do we architect, how do we craft, how do we design educational experiences that prepare creative practitioners not just for today's industries, but for industries that don't yet exist?
Our program is designed to equip you with the skills you need to craft a sustainable career in one of the most exciting, dynamic, and ever-changing creative industries. You'll be able to reflect on your personal strengths and professional goals to enhance your purpose and positioning within your chosen professional community. And you will do this by evidencing CPD activities engaging with the requirements of a particular external framework. That could be WISE for gamers, LCM diplomas for musicians, leadership and management, creative attributes by UAL, and so much more. You'll also have an incredible opportunity to collaborate and network with like-minded individuals to build your own creative community. This will not only help you bring your creative projects to life, but you'll be able to form valuable connections that support your career longevity and sustainability. And finally, you will put your innovative ideas into practice. You'll learn key concepts from design thinking, innovation, and entrepreneurship, alongside the analysis and application of research to be able to develop and craft your capstone project, ensuring you stay ahead in your field and make a long-lasting impact. So as part of the Postgraduate Academy community, you'll have the chance to learn from our interdisciplinary faculty, a diverse range of expert tutors from all different disciplines, from production, performance, to games, design, business, creative artistry, and so others. Creative Industries Futures is a subject-agnostic and holistic course focused on innovation, where you will ideate and create through the lens of your specialism.
I got it right there. So our program emerged from applying systems thinking to a critical question. What are these interconnected elements that constitute a sustainable creative career, creative practice in the 21st century? Traditional creative education operates in silos, most often than not, yet the creative industries themselves are fundamentally interdisciplinary. They operate as complex adaptive systems where innovation emerges at these intersections. So we've therefore designed what we call a post-disciplinary framework, one that is deliberately subject-agnostic while remaining rigorous in its methods. So this approach has attracted an extraordinary cohort. We've had musicians working alongside software engineers, game developers, writers, artists, educators, sustainable design researchers, even flamenco dancers. So this diversity is not only culturally relevant, but strategic, because only by bringing together diverse creative practitioners are we creating the conditions for this intersection innovation to happen, for these breakthrough ideas to emerge when these different domains collide, and for meaningful output that makes a difference to the creative themselves and the world around them to be produced. And this approach stems from our core ethos, which is a triangulation model based on the Intelligent Career Framework, subject specialist micro-credentials, and a thriving community ecosystem, which can be used by all of our budding practitioners to craft their own sustainable career and look further beyond their studies. So first, we have the 3 ways of knowing. This is the how, the tacit knowledge, essentially experiential learning, the knowing why, which encompasses explicit knowledge and links to theoretical frameworks, and the knowing who, which is systemic knowledge, so being able to understand the interconnections within creative ecosystems. Parallel to this and central to our approach is what we call consequential creativity, which is a practice where creative work actively engages with global challenges while simultaneously creating sustainable career opportunities. So rather than treating societal and sectoral priorities like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as external obligations, we integrate them as design constraints that are able to catalyze that innovation. So this includes responding to government policy directions, sector-specific manifestos, community-led initiatives, as well as identifying and addressing emerging needs and in growth areas within the creative industries. And our students gain these cross-disciplinary insights that they then apply to their own specialized fields, essentially innovating through the area of their expertise by drawing an understanding from diverse industries and disciplines. So we equip our students with the knowledge, the competencies, and the values to tackle interconnected global challenges surrounding economic, social, and environmental sustainability. And this alignment serves multiple functions. So first, it connects the individual creative practice to systemic global needs, ensuring market relevance and social impact. This ensures that our students have the comprehension for success in employment, enterprise creation, on any further study. Secondly, it provides a universal framework that transcends national boundaries, which is crucial for our international cohort spanning across Africa, Europe, and Asia. And this way, we're able to foster a globally aware and inclusive learning environment that benefits all students, regardless of their background or location. And thirdly, it positions our graduates as liquid modern professionals. They're adaptable, they're globally conscious, they're systemically aware, enhancing their skills, knowledge, attributes, and behaviors for transforming creative ideas into actions across all disciplines. So just last year, from our recent graduate outcomes, we've had one student develop the Females About Music Collective, which is now a registered community interest company engaging with the Home Office and Arts Council of England in partnership with Grosvenor Road Studios, who recently received the King's Award for Voluntary Service. And this project addressed SDGs 5 and 10 to do with gender equity and reduced inequalities through the creative enterprise. We've had another student engineer accessible music technology, essentially reducing costs by 2/3, directly impacting SDGs 4 and 9 to do with quality education and industry innovation and infrastructure. And we've also had the development of a sustainable educational framework that has expanded into examining how to reform the UK music industry for sustainable futures. Or even our international cohort working in areas like unconventional education methods and sustainable community design in underrepresented regions. So we're going to now have a quick look into their showcase last year.
We've just come down for a celebration event to present our work that we've done on the course of the year of the Masters and meet some of our peers and some of the tutors that have helped us along the way. It's all about showcasing the start of something and then where it is today. It's never ending, but the support and stuff that I got along the Masters, it's been really invaluable.
For me, it expanded my perspectives on the creative industries. There's a lot of new avenues that I've discovered that I didn't discover before.
It came to a point where I had to do something for my exit specialism project. I built a music synthesizer. I was just lost in it. I was just every day soldering and building a circuit. Masters definitely helped develop the idea far more than I would have been able to by myself.
As part of my research module, I wanted to look at what factors were really affecting musicians' career progression. From my research, I identified some of the factors and some methods that can be used, and the framework seemed to be the most suitable strategy to do this. From there, it developed into the NYMA.
The recipient for the Postgraduate Award is Tobias Briggs.
Don't let anyone tell you that you can't and that you should not have what everyone else has. Push, ask, believe in yourself. That's the biggest thing I've learned.
Thank you so much, Katia. We're hugely proud of our students and their outputs. I don't know about building a synthesizer, I can't build Lego, so I really would struggle with that. But we want to have a little look now at why this actually works. So really, rather than prescribing single methodologies, we offer a palette of different approaches. So for this, students might employ human-centered problem-solving techniques. And as part of this, we look at design thinking, entrepreneurial frameworks like the EntreComp framework, but we're also looking at systems thinking, futures thinking, because we are acutely aware that different disciplines have different challenges. And what we really, really believe is that when a student is applying this to a real-world context, their output is much more meaningful. Our methodological flexibility that's built within our course really does reflect our understanding that these creative challenges, they need different approaches. And by doing this and empowering creatives at this stage, we are allowing them to take a meaningful and impactful step into industry. We are always aware of the intersection between different skills and the power of collaboration, both within our student body and, of course, actually with our staff, and that's really, really important. So as part of this, we decided to newly introduce a dual supervision module. And so the students will have 2 supervisors throughout their project. They will have an academic mentor, but they will also have an industry-specific supervisor. And that's really designed with their sustainable career in mind. They will be giving them cutting-edge knowledge, directing them into their future profession, and helping them to feel really hands-on within the industry that they are just about to step into. And as part of this, we are also looking to integrate the Level 8 study model. So we're looking at 2 supervisors, just as you would have in a doctorate, so that the students are prepared for this as they move forward to their career or even future Level 8 study. So we have lots of different areas of our course. One of the things we're really proud of is our subject-specific micro-credentials, and this allows deep specialisation of their industry, but maintains systematic awareness of what's going on so they can remain cutting-edge professionals. And these span from production areas, so we're partnered by Metropolis Studios, and we've got real-world opportunities here for students to actually work within an industry setting and to an industry brief. We've got the creative entrepreneurship arm partnered by Music Ally, and again, we've got some fantastic external partnerships which enable our business students to work within these real-world contexts and keeping their finger on the pulse and reacting to industry change, which we all know as creatives is very important to remain agile at all times. We also have a really interesting arm of targeting mature professionals, so we have our sector expert partnered by Clock. And this enables our students to refine their skills and to craft their own unique learning journeys. And again, at master's level, it's all about this autonomy that the students should have over their learning process. We want the onus to be on them to design their career and their learning with that in mind, knowing that likely there's going to be a lot of interdisciplinary collaboration in their future career. And lastly, we've got our teaching practice. So we are actively looking for a partner with this, but we are all about upskilling the next generation of creatives and also educators, and building them and their knowledge of sustainable frameworks is imperative within this, because certainly when I was doing my master's and even my doctorate, the future career, it wasn't there, it wasn't in mind, and it was how we get through this particular thing, this artifact. But actually, by enabling students to produce something or to start something, they're not then going back to square one when they graduate and it's a case of, oh, now what? I've got this master's, I don't know what to do with it. It's a case of, okay, well, I've done this, I've got the feedback, I've started this, I've built this. And as we've seen, as Katia said earlier, we've got students who then went on to register their businesses, to put their frameworks within educational industries. And that is something we are really, really proud of. So yes, our community ecosystem is, again, something we are really, really proud of. We have our research area. We're all here today as part of the symposium. So we are proud to be able to offer our postgraduate students opportunities to present as part of this, which is really vital in maintaining a dialogue between the student and also the staff as well. We have our enterprise arm, which, again, going back to what I just said about having the students' projects in mind, students have the opportunity to apply through ACM's Business Accelerator Hub. So this is where we turn these concepts into business ventures. And this might be launching music projects, building businesses, building educational tools that are then embedded within industry. The whole idea, the game with this, is providing tangible resources. So one of our current students has secured seed funding as part of this for a game startup. And this really demonstrates this commitment in action, that the students will have something to leave with, and it will boost their employability outcomes, because that dreaded going back to square one after education is really quite scary, and it's now a case that it's hard for these people to find, and our students to find jobs that suit them. It's not a case of going on Indeed and finding a job that is specific to their skill set. So we're more and more empowering students to design their own careers. We have our thought leadership, which is exemplified through our postgraduate end-of-year showcase that you've seen a clip of, where students present their work in a TED-style talk without the big red dot and the scary glances around and everything. It's a lot more informal and a lot more rewarding for the students. But we ask students to produce how might we research posters. So they are tackling these creative problems with ideas and innovation-driven solutions. We're also looking at a future podcast series partnered with Kane FM, positioning our students as public researchers, public intellectuals, capable of articulating these complex ideas and, most importantly, challenging industry assumptions. This has helped them develop communication and leadership skills, and all of these are, again, as well essential for their future careers and their sustainable development of those. And we have our community, which is really the jewel in our crown. We have a developing knowledge and ideas repository where students can respond to research primers, they can look at research prompts and engage with the ongoing development of ACM. And we're really proud of our research and how it's moving, and a special shout out to Rich for that. What we also maintain is a commitment to our students. So we have open lines of communication through our Discord, through our WhatsApp groups, where students are actually helping each other find jobs. It's great that our alumni are saying, oh, hey, I'm hiring someone now, and we're going back to the student body, and there's, jobs popping up in the WhatsApp group and people sharing ideas. And that starts here, and that is something that we're really, really proud of. We also keep the work of our peers in mind at places such as Advanced HE, and we realise the global themes of their educational frameworks within our postgraduate academy. As part of this, we're also working on the development of a Creative Industries Futures Lab, and this will support the students' individual learning journeys as we champion these efforts within the creative sphere. This is an area of active development, and we've got growing ambitions for this, for staff and student mobility, as well as external partnerships. Again, this is exemplification of our commitment to flexible learning delivery, which is really, really important, prioritising active student involvement and actually making students key stakeholders in the learning process, which we are learning from as well. It's shaping how we teach, learn and grow as educators so that we can best empower our students throughout their higher education journey. So our programme is designed for students who don't just want to learn about creative ideas, they want to execute them. It empowers our students to bring their ideas to life, and it's a really big fundamental shift from extractive to regenerative educational models, ones that don't just prepare students to fit within existing industries, but actually to empower them to architect the creative futures that they want to inhabit. Our graduates don't just find employment, they create it. They don't just adapt to industry change, they drive it. And they don't just participate in global challenges, we're really proud that they lead solutions. So before we close, I just want to show some current students' projects in action.
In today's studio environment, many microphones aim for pristine clarity, but that often means we lose the raw, gritty character that defined older recordings. There is a creative gap in accessible, character-driven microphones, especially those that offer a lo-fi aesthetic for experimental music production. Upon collaboration with Metropolis engineer Joe Bryce and artist manager Oliver Lloyd, I've repurposed a vintage telephone into a dynamic microphone, turning a nostalgic everyday object into a tool for experimentation for modern creators, ultimately removing the need for additional plugins or processing to achieve an experimental vintage sound. In order to evaluate the microphone's characteristics and performance in comparison to commercial microphones, I aim to facilitate a focus group consisting of 5 audio engineers. I expect to find that it may not rival high-end studio mics in clarity or range, but its distinctive mid-range tone and unique design will offer a creative alternative for genres that embrace raw, expressive textures such as hip-hop and rock. Within this project, I aim to build a community for producers, engineers, and DIY audio enthusiasts, one that encourages experimentation and reimagining what's possible within music production. It's about creating a space where people feel inspired to share their own ideas, whether that's a unique microphone build, an unconventional recording technique, or simply engaging in open creative conversations around experimental audio. The goal is to create a community that values innovation, collaboration, and thinking beyond the ordinary. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Matt and I'm looking at anonymous artists within the music industry. More so, I'm looking at them within the popular music industry. So what have been my research methods for this? For my project, I've been taking a grounded theory approach, which is allowing me to bend the project based.
Yeah. Matthew, I've not had luck with your video.
Oh.
But now
In today's studio,
skip that one a bit.
No. You're all together.
Oh.
Having some Wi-Fi issues. Okay. Everyone who wants to hear more about Matthew, we might send a video later on. We apologize for this.
Maybe you could share those around later by...
Yeah, no, that's fine. We'll share it around. But Matthew's is a really interesting project about anonymous artists. Maxi, who's also here today, building a microphone out of a vintage telephone. Wow, oh my gosh. This just proves that the future of creative education doesn't lie in disciplinary boundaries, but in the intelligent orchestration of interdisciplinary possibility. We haven't just created a program here, it's a blueprint. And we really invite you to join us in this essential work of reimagining higher education, just like our alumni have.
Hi there, hello, hope you're well. Frank Sweeney here, international community arts producer. My insightful and enlightening Creative Industries Futures MA has led me to create and direct a whole new carnival, and to co-produce and co-direct 2 other carnivals, to create and direct a carnival masquerade troupe or masquerade band, and to co-produce an international community choir collaboration which works across the African Atlantic diaspora. I'm consulting 2 local authorities here in London, on developing innovative, community-led partnerships with the local authorities, which will help to sustain carnivals in their borough. And I am providing specialist production administration support to a growing network of independent Black theatre producers. Speak to you soon, cheers.
Hi, my name is Ben Reilly. I did the Creative Industries Futures Masters course. It was a fantastic course led by really great professionals. And yeah, it's led me further into my career path where I'm now a technical project manager for live events such as theatre, festivals, weddings, corporate, exhibition, etc. And I also get to continue with my sound engineering as well, installing and operating on site and leading teams of people. It was a fantastic experience on the course, and it's led me to do the job that I love.
The ACM Masters course really helped me open my perspectives on the creative industries. I went from having a very narrow mindset of trying to make it as just a producer / a studio engineer, but soon realised that's not just enough to make it in the creative industries. I was really able to assess myself as a professional and understand the importance of transferable skills and how they can not only improve my own career, but also benefit the careers of others around me. During my time in the Masters, I worked on projects such as developing a framework for young professionals to help improve career sustainability, as well as looking at the possibility of launching traineeship programs for studio engineers. Since graduating, I've been engaging in mentorship sessions, and these have really helped really understand, improve my professional profile, as well as looking at other skills that can be applied not only to the creative industries, but other industries as well. So, for example, quality control, quality assurance, etc. I've also...
Wheel of Doom again, but we will make sure that these are sent round. In short, what wonderful output that we've had from our alumni, and we are
Been
really, really
launching
proud.
independent research.
Tobias is starting off again. I think what we'll do is we'll cut it off and we'll send that out. But thank you so much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much, guys. That's great. We'll disseminate the videos on links to videos afterwards. So, does anyone have any questions? Tony?
Pretty simple question. I don't think you mentioned it. Is it 1 or 2 years, and how many students are coming through each year?
This might be more of a question for Tom, actually. So it's a 1 year, but we do have a part-time option that goes over 2 years, and it's ever growing. So our masters, it started small, but we're hoping to have, well, Tom, what's the number? Oh, there we go. Oh, there's the numbers guy.
So yeah, we're very proud of what we've done with the Masters, and just credit to you guys for what you've done in running it. We are now projecting to be in the 40s, I think, for a single program for our PG for September. With a bit more marketing around it, etc. We would like this to be the largest postgraduate program outside of your your MBA style PGs in the UK. So
no pressure there then.
None at all. None at all.
Any other questions? Yes.
Hello, there we go. Yeah, really, really interesting. I've just rewritten the Masters at my institution for the performance programme, and the ethos that drove that was democratising the research space. And obviously so much of that is relating to which voices are foregrounded in research, which ones are not. So I'm really curious, through the lens of decolonisation and those practices, how has that featured in the design of this programme? Because at the end of the day, we still need to make sure that there are more voices being heard in the research space, not just feeding the industry, as we've said, that are going to keep them there.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, we have 4 core modules as part of this. One of those is applied research. So the way we've done this is we've split this over 2 semesters, so the students have quite a sizable chunk. The first part of that is we really are really certain that we need the academic rigour. So the first part of that is they will learn all of the different mixed methods that they have available, as well as some of the new cutting edge ones as well. And then they integrate that into the project. So as part of that, we are saying that this is a piece of research, this artifact, rather than, just saying, okay, I want to produce an EP or I want to start a business. That's got to be grounded in research, and we actively encourage them to share it. Then it feeds into the other 2 modules, so they'll be looking at stakeholders within their research, and that might be collaborators, it might be investors, but it also might be other people to collaborate within the research space, and that's where we get them to speak at symposiums, at conferences, and hopefully we will be really having a big representation of the postgraduate body at events like these. So we're acutely aware that we need the academic rigour, but by sort of giving it through the lens of actually producing something meaningful that they can leave with, this research becomes less of this kind of scary word and actually something that they can do throughout their practice.
Great, thanks.
Did I see another hand? Okay, well, one more. Thank you once again, Katia and Madeline. Thank you very much. It is now lunch. Just before we break to lunch, though, I'd like to draw your attention to our fabulous Andy Wardle, who's been helping out with sound today. Thank you, Andy. Andy, if you haven't seen yet, please do visit his Hella set-up booth near the mixing desk thingy in the foyer. Andy will be able to tell you more about that if you can grab a moment with him. But it's about healthy hearing and listening, and there's a certification program that Andy's involved with that you guys can get involved to as well, and you can sign up and so forth. So yeah, speak to Andy about that and do have a look, because it's very interesting stuff. There is food. Please enjoy it, and I will see you back here hopefully at 2:20. Thanks, guys.